So, happiness has been a topic, and positive psychology in general has been a topic for us in the last 15 years. Actually, it became a topic after we did some studies on depression in kids in Portugal. And the results made us very astonished and even worried, because we had lots of kids from privileged families in schools that were saying that they felt sad and unhappy with life, and that was difficult to imagine the future. They were very worried about the future. So we thought that we needed to do something relating to how to educate or think in terms of culture. So culture, optimism and happiness has been a topic for us, right?
Yeah, that was the starting point. We wrote a book in 1999, wrote and published a book in 1999, which title was Educating for Optimism. It was written in Portuguese. And the interesting thing about it was that we kind of anticipated the coming up of positive psychology, first in academia, in psychology, in the international journals of psychologists such as American Psychologist, January 2000, with a special number on positive psychology. So we were very privileged to have published in Portuguese a book that somehow anticipated positive psychology. I think now almost 15 years have passed, and so now we are thinking about Educating for Optimism 2.0 in Portuguese, an upgrade of that area.
We've been interested in cultural and communities and national topics. So, beginning with that beginning, the point where we are now involves the interest of thinking not as much as how people individually can actually enhance their well-being, their optimism, their resilience, their gratitude, our sense of humor, which are all topics that we've been interested in study. But how can this be a collective endeavor? How can we think of communities, of schools, of corporate organizations that actually activate the opportunities for the best to happen through relationships. So relational goods, which is also a term that is coming from the economics, how strange that sounds, has captured our attention in the last few years. And we also always thought that there was this missing link inside the approaches on the best in people that was exactly, eventually, the European contribution for this kind of studies, which is how can we capitalize on this capacity we have to relate with each other, to actually pay attention to each other, to grow together, so that we go back to the feeling of being part of something and moving on as a collective. So.
Yeah, you mentioned cultures and nations and Portugal. There's always this big question: is Portugal, with this kind of weather, how come Portuguese people became so depressed and so negative? Everyone that we meet from abroad ask us But in any case, I can remember, and speaking about relational goods, that for instance during the 60s we were a very poor country, you know, and then especially after 74 we reached a situation where democracy was made available to people, and there was this economical growth. So we kind of how can I say, we elevated the quality of life and the quality of well-being of the persons. But, and then it became a huge question, the scientific, and at the same time a question that deals with everyone everyday life, which is something is missing, even for the persons who are able to of course now we are living a huge economical crisis, but in any case, even for the persons who are very successful in economical terms, there was something missing. Success, an economical success, and the cleaning up the social ladder was not enough, and the beach in Portugal was not enough for the well-being of persons. So this idea of the relational goods, and we were, since ever, we in Portugal were very good at the relational goods. I mean, the family life, it's most of the time a very important thing for Portuguese people. The meals are most of the time fantastic, but so the relational goods were really an important part of our lives. And I think that we have to be able to coordinate the demands of a very full activity, employment, demands from the employment and the relational life. I mean, we have to find a balance that most of the time is not easy. So I think positive psychology and happiness studies might help a lot in that balance.
Yes, and I was thinking in a particular model of happiness that we've been also very interested in, which is coming from the late 18th century, 19th century? The idea that economical development is absolutely important to be able to get people out of poverty and bringing equality and social justice as vital aims for society. But that was not enough, and we are now in a moment where we discovered that that was absolutely a point and an area of growth for societies, but actually that we needed something more. And this model that already talked about public happiness, not individual, but public happiness, determined and defended the need for three elements. The first one was the economical development, as I was saying, but then these economists, these Italian economists from Napoli, said that we also needed conditions for virtuousness in the institutions and systems where we live. Which is interesting, even from the point of view of etymology. If we go back to the Latin word felicitas, what it means is generativity, fertility, virtuousness. And it's interesting to compare with the Anglo-Saxon word, happiness, that comes from the idea of what happens. So I'm expecting something that is from outside that will happen, that will bring me some kind of well-being. And the Latin word is totally different and focuses on a very different perspective, which is how can we be and become virtuous persons? How can we promote conditions for this fertility, fructifying of societies from psychological and not only an economical perspective. And finally, the model also said that there will be public happiness if and only that happiness is shared. If it's something that is common, I should not be able to be happy unless my neighbor or colleague or husband or is also happy. And this connects with the process of relational goods, because it's through relationships that actually this kind of good that we cannot buy. It's free. It involves gratitude. It's not instrumental, right? We have money and we buy things to try to be happy with that money. But a relationship, it's not instrumental. It's good in itself. It's a good in itself. So these three elements are part of this public happiness model that a teacher that is part of our executive master of positive psychology that we have in Lisbon University, Luigi Bruni, has been researching and writing about in a very particular, sensitive way that has touched us as researchers also.
Yes, if I may just add one idea is that, for instance, from time to time, it's very, how can I say, difficult to explain for us the happiness of not well-developed countries. People in, for instance, in African countries, becoming so happy with just I mean a level of economical development not very high. So this idea that the identity is made up from relationships, I am because you are, that it takes a village to raise a child. It's an important thing to add to economical development. So public happiness, it should be linked with an idea of selfhood, of identity, construction of identity based on the relationships.
I was also thinking in terms of this, linking with what we're saying from Luigi Bruni, this idea that when we relate with others, there's always any kind of pain or suffering or disappointment or frustration. A relationship has in itself the possibility of a wound. This perspective that we are getting more and more isolated, more and more avoiding somehow being with others, is eventually based in not being able in the current developed societies to accept the wound and to deal with the wound. But it's, and that somehow drives us apart. The word is being immunized regarding the other. But also we do know from research that the best way to achieve happiness after we have our basic needs met is to be in relationships. So relationship is what brings us pain and suffering, but it's also what brings the possibility of happiness. So we need to go back to people and remember that we only can be happy if we accept what the other brings and the other as it is, and the relationship has a vulnerable process in itself. Relationship with dogs is also important, and animals. We just had one passing by. So moving from the immunitas to the communitas, and I was remembering, I don't know if it makes sense to share, but we know a woman in the Azores Islands, Dona Décia. She lives in a very impoverished situation. Her husband, he's a fisherman. She has 4 kids of her own, plus 3 that she accepted after her sister left them behind. And it's a very fascinating woman in a terrible living condition, or in a terrible life. So you have a good life, right, don't you? So we have conversations with her. She lives in Rabo de Peixe, which is in the Azores, in São Miguel. And in one of the last conversations, she came to us saying that she was really worried with one of her kids, because he has a developmental problem and is not growing as he should. So he's under a lot of bullying in school. And she was really, really worried with that. And she spent a whole night writing a book with drawings and stories. And she wanted help to edit the book and be able to go to schools and help kids understand how they need to respect and to bring fraternity to their relationship. And this person has several stories of this totally focusing on others, which gives mean to her life, and it's for me, for us, an example of how, while we need to deal with our own pains, while we need to keep investing in a just society, which is the basic for all of this to happen, then we are able to make these movements of turning to others and creating meaning in our lives that goes beyond our own personal successes and just is there for this collective happiness.
Yeah, as someone in positive psychology used to say, other people matter.
We hope you take care of the persons in your life, as we try to do, right? Thank you.